So what do you say we take a look at Quentin Tarantino? It's probably not going to be the film that a lot of you are thinking, though. That's next review. But this one is definitely a rather noted film from Quentin Tarantino, and this one is Inglorious Basterds, released in 2009. And it's definitely another interesting example of what Tarantino is capable of as a writer-director. Basically, the plot centers on a band of American renegades led by Brad Pitt, who specialize in tracking down noteworthy Nazis and killing them, or marking them as the case may be. And the other story involves a Jewish woman trying to get revenge on the Nazis by creating a propaganda project. All the while, both groups are being tracked down by this one particularly slimy colonel played by Christoph Waltz in his first Oscar-winning role. And really, that's all there is to it as far as story is concerned. It's more about a series of moments, like most Tarantino films. This film does have a lot of the aspects that seem to go hand in hand with the filmmaking techniques that Quentin Tarantino has under his belt. The witty dialogue that seldom has anything to do with what's actually going on, yet establishes character and atmosphere. The very aloof, laid-back characters that don't have that much character to them, but certainly have enough established moments to at least make sure they leave some sort of impact. A soundtrack of compiled songs and pieces of music from other sources due to Tarantino's fear of not liking any incidental music composed for his films. Tackling some sort of controversial subject matter as far as story's concerned. A major revenge fest. Extreme bloody violence. Intense action, bits of unpleasantness that are piled on so heavily that you can't help but laugh uncomfortably, all here in this film. But there are some interesting aspects of this film beyond that, for sure. In many ways, this film is very controversial, in different ways than normal for Tarantino, that is. That is to say, it's different from history in many respects, and Nazis are a pretty touchy subject matter in that regard, but I think I can give this one a pass because, technically speaking, it's the perfect revenge story, both for people from America and for people of Judaic faith, because it's, I think, the perfect way to depict how it could be quite possible that they were the reason why the Nazis fell, if those people just happen to exist, and I do think it's very interesting in that regard. And the characters, though not really that interesting, are at least memorable, particularly Christoph Waltz, who is probably the most enjoyably evil characters that I have ever seen in a film, and I just love how much he enjoys teasing his future victims with the fact that he just seems to know absolutely everything that ought not to be known on his behalf. The resolution is actually very bizarre in its own sense, even for Tarantino films. In fact, it's almost vain. The closing line of the film is, "I think this just might be my masterpiece." I get the weird feeling that Tarantino actually thought that when he was making this film, and it's certainly a very entertaining film, but like every other Tarantino film, you have to understand it's a Tarantino film. It's very unpleasant, very gory, and very suspenseful. Yet, the thing about it is that the unpleasantness is in fact so heavy, it becomes ironically funny. The violence is so over the top, it becomes ironically funny. And the intensity is so intense, well, it becomes ironically funny. That's the thing about Tarantino. He has this unique way of making things ironically funny. And I don't know how he does it, but he's got a gift, and this film is a good example of that. So, I will say definitely check this one out if you haven't seen it. On the whole, Inglorious Basterds is an entertaining film, though admittedly it does suffer from one or two problems. The pacing does get slow at times, and again, the characters, though memorable, are not as interesting as they could be, but it still has pretty much everything that's to be expected from a film by Quentin Tarantino, and in that sense, it's definitely worth watching, especially if you are an extreme Tarantino fan and for some reason have not seen this. So, on the worth meter, I would give this a worth owning at best. And I'd give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Not the absolute best from Tarantino per se, but definitely worth checking out due to its fascinating delving into a subject matter usually not touched on in this fashion. Thank you for your time.